With Resistance Fall of Man, when we established myresistance.net, the first thing we got was a ton of feedback on the game, both for multiplayer and for single player. And we made some big tweaks to the design based on what players were telling us.
There's so much that's different about Resistance 2. We have online co-op now up to 8 players. We've got 60-player multiplayer. We've got a huge campaign mode, and we're introducing a much richer community aspect.
We knew that we needed to beef up co-op after releasing Resistance Fall of Man. One of the questions we got over and over again is, why didn't you do online co-op? What's your problem? And we said, okay, let's just bite the bullet, go for online co-op, but let's take it a little further. Let's do 8-player online co-op, and it really does stand out as something very different that Resistance 2 offers.
We wanted to give people defined roles and clear dependencies and relationships with their friends. That brought us to developing our 3 core classes, which are the Soldier, who is the primary damage absorber for the group, the Medic, who is responsible for maintaining the team's health and reviving downed team members, and the Spec Ops, who's really responsible for the majority of the damage dealing in the group. 3 classes really create relationships and dependencies that force people to play together. This gives each class the opportunity to shine in specific encounters and really allows people to have their specific moment in the game, drawing out the hero in everyone.
Well, the overall concept was scale. We really needed to bring the multiplayer up to speed with the single player. And to do that, our technology guys really came through for us. We ended up getting focusing on 60-player battles. In Resistance 2, we're offering deathmatch, team deathmatch, and capture the flag, which are kind of the standards. And then we're offering this new mode called skirmish. But big games, you kind of feel a little bit lost. So we really had to bring that sense of intimacy of a small battle into these 60-player huge battles. So we did that with squads. 5 guys, it's a lot easier to get to know them, a lot easier to work together, and then we pit the squads against a rival squad. So we use these smaller squads to coordinate the entire team for larger goals. You just feel like, oh my God, the war is happening and I'm in it.
All online access is free for the PlayStation universe. We really wanted to accommodate both new players and old players alike and really have an immediate sense of accessibility the moment somebody jumps into a game.
We want people to be able to get in fast, have fun, and not feel intimidated by the game. And we do this by, first of all, having a very streamlined lobby. So when you start playing the game, you want to play competitive, find game, and basically you're in. On the other hand, if you want to experiment with all the options, set up a clan, play with your character a little bit, look at your stats, that's all available to you as well. But you don't have to go digging through 100 different menus to actually get into the game.
So the reason community is so important to us at Insomniac is that we really want to develop a relationship with our fans. And similarly, we want our fans to develop relationships with each other. And we just want to create a real community of people who we can trust for feedback that will help us make better games. And that's what the new My Resistance 2.0 is all about.
When we began talking about community with Resistance 2, we really did take a hard look at what websites are doing, because that's where the future of community is. So with Resistance 2, we wanted to start integrating a lot of those social networking features so that players could find folks who have the same interests that they do, folks who they'd like to play with, versus just being thrown into a game with a bunch of random strangers.
We've been thinking about the website since day one, and as a result, there's a lot of crossover, whether it's news, clans, leaderboards, profiles. Those things are going to talk back and forth between My Resistance and the game itself. What's really been eye-opening as we grow our community is just watching how passionate our fans are, and we just want to put the platform in place and watch people, just experiment and play with it in their own way. When it comes to community and it comes to the game experience in Resistance 2, we want players to get in, log on, and go blow shit up. That's what's important to us. Go have fun.
With Resistance 2, what ended up being the ultimate pillar for us for the game is scale. And when I say scale, I'm talking about scale of the environments, the sheer size of the environments. Scale in terms of the numbers of enemies that you'll see attacking you on the screen. And of course, scale of some of the enemies themselves.
Bigger characters, bigger levels, more lighting, better lighting, bring those elements to the table. And by just focusing on those and not chasing every other element, I think that's what really made making Resistance 2 and its tech possible.
That was only feasible because we had separate teams working on all of these different modes, which of course hooked together. But that created a game of scale that we had never tried before.
Negative, Keystone. Pull back. Do you copy?
Fighting the Leviathan in Chicago was one of those experiences that when we first got it running, we said, yes, that's what we really were going for.
We tried to set it up so the player feels like they're right in the heart of the action and really grappling with this huge conflict all the time.
One of the key signatures of an Insomniac game has always been the long view. The ability to see far, and that when you do see far, it looks good, that you see lots of elements, that they're active and detailed.
We try to set things up with compositions that the player is forced to look at in-game that really supports that glimpse into deep space. So for a sequence like the Bay Bridge sequence in R2, we started out by blocking out a composition, kind of getting a good idea of what the basic pieces would be and how they'd fit together. Then we just add on layer upon layer until we get something that's hopefully like really a spectacular moment for the player when they get to experience it for the first time.
We've had a couple of years now to optimize a lot of those different technologies that go into drawing a character, whether it's the animation system, which is probably 8 times faster than it was in Resistance 1 now, or the physics system, which is maybe 3 or 4 times faster than it was in Resistance 1. Our designers can put these shots in where you have 40 guys rushing at you and attacking you, but all those characters are independently doing their AI, and all the effects are running on all of them, and there's no fakery. It was really about finding these new approaches and making them come to life.
In terms of the detail that you'll see in the characters, the detail you'll see in the environments, the sheer amount of stuff going on in the game, all that is because we have been able to tweak our engine over the last couple of years. And now Resistance 2 is the pinnacle for us of what we've been able to achieve on PlayStation 3.
Our vision of Resistance 2, as big as it was, wasn't as big as what we had when we shipped the game.
We really hope that that players kind of just take a minute to take in the enormity of the scene they're looking at.
Capelli!
Hopefully it's something that will stick with people, like after they put the game down, even a couple years later.
All of us here at Insomniac are really satisfied with what we came out with, and we're really happy to have done it.
Resistance 2 is a sequel to Resistance Fall of Man. And our goal with this one was to extend the story significantly so that we answered a lot of questions about who Nathan Hale is, who the Chimera are, why they're here.
With Resistance 2, we have 3 big gameplay modes. We have our single-player campaign mode, we have our multiplayer competitive mode, and our co-op mode. They all take place in our alternate history, America of 1953.
Telling stories is tough. Whether it's games, movies, books, whatever.
Let's move. We need to get that bomb within 500 feet of the ship's reactor.
It used to be that story was kind of incidental, and all you had to know was why you were doing what you're doing. But I think these days people want to know that there's an emotional attachment between characters in the story, that you're fighting for something.
I'm taking our squad to Bryce Canyon to extract Malakoff.
This isn't a debate, Lieutenant. You're going back to base, and that's an order.
We really wanted to take the story and make it part of the gameplay. So you're constantly learning about the characters, and you're constantly learning about how things work and where Nathan Hale comes from.
Have you retrieved the viral inhibitors?
I'm sorry, sir, there wasn't time.
You're learning what's driving you to move to the next chapter, and you're finding out what's unfolding around the United States as you're fighting your way through it.
Shut it down!
It is no longer possible!
Which tower activated it?
Iceland. It is him, Nathan. It is Daedalus.
We want to show the quintessential David versus Goliath story. We want to show a story in which humanity really is clinging on to the last vestiges of its existence. It's really fighting a good fight and losing, but it's still not giving up.
So, are you gonna make your last hours count? Let's go.
Lieutenant, there's a ground convoy waiting to take us into Gray territory.
When we began talking about locations in the game, we knew that we had the entire United States to choose from. We decided, okay, let's kind of go to the middle of the country and then head south. So we could pick up the swamps in Louisiana, and then Chicago in the middle of the country, and a farm town in the Midwest. Those were the kind of environments that really struck a chord with us, because not only would they stand out in terms of visuals, but they also really reflected America in the 1950s.
Concept art for kind of the big moments in the game came together fairly early on. And that really sort of influenced and inspired us on the team for everything from the graphic design look of our posters and signs in-game, to the look of industrial design, like the look of appliances, to the architecture, the look of cars. We took all of that, but then juxtaposed it with the alien threat. So we have all of that kind of happy subject matter played up against skies that are black with the Chimera fleet invading the heartland of America.
Viscerality, which was a word that we made up, and the idea behind Viscerality was to create a more visceral experience, something that made you believe that you were in the game versus just kind of shooting things. And we did that by increasing our gore level. And you'll notice that this time we are what we call chunking enemies. So you can blow enemies into pieces, and we certainly didn't have that with the Resistance Fall of Man. And for us, it's actually very satisfying. It's fun.
So, where are we headed?
Serpa 3. It's a facility near San Francisco.
In the game, we talk a lot about how SERPA, the Special Research Projects Administration, repurposes Chimeran technology for human use.
We've got a crazy arsenal of weapons. I think the programmers and the designers really outdid themselves this time.
And one of my favorite weapons in the game is the spider grenade, constructed from the spit generated by a marauder. It blows up into this puddle of goo that chases around hybrids and covers them and then bursts into flame. And it's a lot of fun.
They are calling to us. Can you hear them?
Resistance 2 is our most ambitious project to date.
I feel like we were a lot less bound by technology limitations this time around.
Keep her steady!
We could really imagine what we wanted to do. We could really kind of color script the game, imagine like the mood that we wanted to get across.
One of our thoughts was, okay, let's make sure that we tell more of the story. Let's give players answers about who Hale is.
How are you feeling, Nathan? Mostly human.
But I think we didn't realize how much we were adding until we got about halfway through production. We all were looking at each other, and a lot of people were looking at me and going, oh my God, what have you gotten us into? We expect that.
How long do I have?
That's just part of pushing the envelope when it comes to game development.
3 hours.
If we are lucky.
What we're finding now is the term video game almost doesn't apply anymore. We've become interactive entertainment. We're really looked at on par with the movie industry. We've certainly felt the need to bring our cinematics, our game experience, our stories to the level of what people expect when they watch a movie. You know, really get immersed in this world. At the same time, they also don't want to be like, oh, I just had a lot of fun shooting stuff, now I gotta put the controller down for 30 seconds and watch a movie. I think they really kind of want to stay involved, and that's why we really kind of felt like, well, I think we can tell the story with some of the movies, but also with these little opportunities to get some story across to you, but not make you feel like you need to put the controller down. So we have two forms of cinematics. We have our full rendered movies. And then we also have our in-game cinematics, the Hail Visions, which basically stay in first person to try to keep the player immersed in the game.
Hail, find that breach! Brace for impact!
From an animation standpoint, the big thing that we wanted to focus on with Resistance 2 was bringing the movement to a much more realistic experience.
Get off me!
Easy, Sergeant! It's harmless.
We could use motion capture to get all of our human and realistic soldier animations done, and it really let the animators kind of focus on doing the really keyframe creature animation that we have.
Basically, motion capture works. We have a series of cameras. Our stage has about 88 cameras, and those cameras pick up markers that we put all over the body. Those bodies then get translated into the computer and applied to a skeleton, which we later use in the game.
Our tendency, coming from our cartoonist background, was to want to continue to do keyframe animation. And while we managed to do that on the first game, we realized how much work it really was. So the biggest advantage was definitely time saving. In animation, there's nothing that I think that gets more scrutinized than human movement. Motion capture, you know, you got the guys in the suit, they're doing the realistic movement. We're able to bring that data into our scenes, and with a minimal amount of cleanup on our process, we're getting realistic movement. It really helped us get more story out of our cinematics.
You know, sir, you don't have to do this. If we get you to Grand Rapids, they might be able to do something.
We found as we were working on Resistance that we needed additional help with the mocap process. So we gave a call down to the San Diego Visual Arts Group, and they offered a lot more than what we were initially looking for. Mike introduced us to the InterSense camera, which became a huge part of our cinematics.
The InterSense camera is a complement to the motion capture in that we take the motion capture of the characters from the stage, put it into a set, and we use this physical camera in a virtual environment to walk around them and then capture the camera motion. Before, you would sort of decide, here's where my camera is going to be, and the actors would have to hit their marks. Now the beauty is we're capturing the motion capture off the stage, and now you can just keep playing it over and over again and shoot from any angle, real time, over and over until you get the perfect camera move to match the perfect motion capture performance.
InterSense is different from standard mocap as far as if you want to do a handheld motion, you want to do a dolly, a pan, a tilt. It's more instantaneous, just like you would on a film set.
For Resistance 2, we used the InterSense camera to give a more lifelike film quality to all of the cinematics. We were using a lot of handhelds, which is really hard to do if you're animating a camera. It's a lot of subtlety, and it's something that, in the end, you don't really get what you're 100% looking for. I think the InterSense is making developers' lives easier because we can do cameras real time in that environment, whereas an animator, it might take them a day or 2 days to do that same move.
Now the camera becomes a part of the story, where before there was a disconnect where the camera really wasn't tied into the dialogue or tied into a reaction shot or tied into the character.
Quit yapping and land already! You want to fly this thing? Be my guest!
Resistance 2 is the first game to be using this technology. I do think this is going to be a trend that is used in games because I think that the results speak for themselves. I think that the quality of the camera work and the cinematography that is happening in this game will probably set a precedence for all games to come.
It's just like, I mean, I was blown away with what you can do with that camera, and it really got us excited and almost starting to think differently about how we wanted to approach our cinematics. You know, Mike's been working with the InterSense camera for years. Sony used it in their film division, and so he brought it to the games. And I think for us to have the opportunity to really be one of the first titles to you know, use this technology in the games is a fantastic opportunity, and we're really excited about what we can do, you know, not only on Resistance 2, but going forward with it as a tool for our cinematics.
In 1908, an unexplained explosion flattens more than 2,000 square kilometers of Siberian forest in what comes to be known as the Tunguska event. 6 years later, World War I begins. As the war rages, Tsar Mikhail crushes the Bolsheviks before communism can take hold in Russia. Russia builds a barrier along its European border that is longer than the Great Wall of China. Construction of the largest U.S. Army base begins in Alaska. Isolationist Senator Noah Grace defeats Roosevelt in the elections. In 1947, a Russian refugee carrying a genetically modified skull dies en route to Britain. May 1948, German intelligence intercepts Russian radio broadcasts. The Chimera break through the Russian wall, invading Europe and infecting entire populations with the Chimeran virus. After just 4 weeks, the continent has fallen. The Chimera tunnel under the English Channel. British intelligence discover they're unearthing a network of giant towers. Their purpose and age unknown. In a desperate raid, joint British and American forces destroy the massive London Tower, causing death to all the Chimera on British soil. In preparation for the inevitable, the U.S. government creates a Liberty Defense Perimeter. Its purpose? To provide safe haven for the millions fleeing in the event of an assault. On May 15, 1953, the Chimera launched a massive attack against North America.
Today, the country shudders in the wake of cataclysmic devastation. Torn by war with a brutal and terrifying enemy, the likes of which we have never seen. This struggle for the very survival of mankind, this struggle, ladies and gentlemen, may now be forever lost.
Well, most of us who have played games for a while know that XP stands for experience points. And we have experience points in Resistance 2. Now, unlike Resistance 1, where you could only earn experience points for multiplayer competitive, you can earn experience points in single-player mode, in co-op mode, and in competitive mode.
Typically in the past, games have really kept those modes separate from each other in regards to rank and progression. We really wanted to invite and encourage our players to really delve into all three of our modes to experience them, because they're all very robust and offer a lot. So the key is that you have a global pot of experience at your global rank, and you contribute to all the three modes. Experience in cooperative campaign is divvied up amongst the three classes. You have the ability to level up each of your classes individually. They do not share a rank, so it really is dependent on how much time you play as a Spec Ops, how much time you play as a soldier. You will level up in that class specifically.
We reward players with XP for doing different actions within the game. So killing other players, of course, grabbing the core in core control, capturing it, killing the core carrier, capturing control points, defending control points, things like that in skirmish. You'll level up this way, you'll unlock skins and berserks and things like that. But also, this XP is used to fill up your berserk meter.
So berserks are our reward for players in competitive multiplayer for performing their objectives in each respective game mode correctly. You only start off with a few, but as you progress and play more and more and become more successful in the game, you'll get more berserks that can be perhaps more tailored to your play style.
If I want to just, ghost around the map, I try to go with a berserk that'll keep me off other people's radars or just make me invisible to them. When I'm doing this, you kind of use the bullseye, maybe a shotgun, kill them quick, and that way you don't have to worry about attracting other people on the radar. It's just really, top tier, gameplay tactics.
All our berserks are very different and unique. Some are for helping out your team.
The Chimera Vision Aura is similar to the Chimera Rage from R1. This allows you and your teammates to get the drop on enemies because you can see them through walls and they have no idea of your presence.
If you're kind of crazy player and you like rushing into the thick of combat, you can use your Overload Berserk, which is basically your human time bomb.
If you see, a large group of people, pretty much you're gonna die if they see you and they come at you, but just sprint right at them, turn on overload, you'll explode, and you will kill that person, and it has a pretty decent blast radius, so you can probably get another 2-3 people with that if they're close enough.
One of my favorite berserks to use is prototype ammo. What this does is when I activate the prototype ammo, it deploys 4 large ammo boxes out into the environment. What these then do is if you have teammates come by and pick up a large ammo box, they'll get 25% increased damage.
Given in any situation, it's probably best to have a couple people watching your back. I mean, if you are rolling with a teammate and you kind of using berserks that play well off of each other, like say your one drops advanced ammo and you drop your Ring of Life, because Ring of Life helps out anybody who stands inside the ring, you're both just destroying everybody and taking less damage overall. You're healing faster from that damage, so 2 damage sponges are better than 1, I guess.
You're not just restricted to one berserk for the whole game. You can change these berserks at any time you want. The berserk will change for you when you respawn. So you can change up your tactics however you want and use each berserk to really help you depending on the situation of a battle.
Objectives are really the core of Skirmish, and completing these objectives, working with your squad mates to complete them, will give your team points. That's how you win the game, completing more objectives basically than the other team. We originally kind of designed Skirmish to really facilitate small squad teamwork, kind of give them an experience that a lot of clans have when they get really good teamwork going, but players don't always get this on the kind of in pickup games and stuff like that if they're not that organized. So we wanted to create a mode that really helps players get focused and work together, and so Skirmish kind of came out of that. We didn't want it to get too complicated. We wanted to kind of feel like a little bit like team deathmatch. It's really important. Work with your squad, get those objectives accomplished, participate in those objectives, and then earn your berserks, and then you're going to be way more powerful to roll over the other team, roll over the other squad, and get to the top of the leaderboard.
Core control is essentially Resistance 2's Capture the Flag mode, with a few slight changes and tweaks to the game mechanics that you know from traditional CTF.
This time the core carrier is unable to shoot while they're carrying the core. This makes teamwork really important in the game mode because your core carrier is not going to get very far if he's by himself. You really need to make sure you're defending him and taking out any nearby enemies so that he can get back to the base safely. Some of the berserks in Resistance 2 have an aura effect, which is really useful to help out your team. All of your nearby teammates will share your berserk. So if you're setting up a defensive stand, for example, and you have the advanced radar berserk, your nearby squad mates will know if they are falling into a trap, and you'll be able to set up a perimeter and counter the attack effectively.
Even though you are unable to use your weapons while carrying the core, any attempt to perform an action such as swap weapons, fire, melee, or whatever will have you immediately drop the core. While this may sound like a nuisance, it's actually a really cool strategy. At that point you can use your weapons to try to fend off any attackers and then pick the core back up. It's also very good for basically baiting enemy players.
One fun thing you can do in core control is if you're playing defense, you can use the Magnum, shoot the bullets onto the core, and then when somebody comes by to pick them up, you can detonate the bullets and just blow them away. That's kind of funny.
My name is Josue Benavides. I am a co-op designer. I work on the co-op game mode for Resistance 2. And in co-op we have 3 classes that you can play as. You can play as a soldier, a medic, or a spec ops.
You definitely want to exploit the class roles that you have. You want to do what you're supposed to do. You're pretty much rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do, but if you run off on your own, you're always going to die. If you're a soldier, you should be providing cover. If you're a spec ops, you should be providing ammo. If you're a medic, you should be focused on your guys, healing people. If you're not doing that, you're going to die. Your whole team's going to die. You're going to fail.
Our approach to co-op is different than other games. In other games, even though it's a co-op game, you know that the game has been designed to be completed by one player. That's different from our game. Our game is not completable by one player, and that's where you get kind of this camaraderie, because you know you need your other players to help you complete this campaign, because it's so difficult.
The co-op story takes place basically parallel to the single-player campaign. We have a lot of reveals that are introduced throughout the co-op experience that add flavor and added depth to the fiction presented in single player. There are Primarchs and Overseers, which are basically more advanced units. These units can be seen by symbols that are over their head, as well as having a health bar in comparison to the other enemies. So everybody's going to have to work together to take these guys down, but the rewards that they uncover will be shared amongst the entirety of the group, so that there's no ninja looting or anything like that. And then as you collect these artifacts, you will be able to use them to upgrade your armor in the Outfitter. The medic is very important to the co-op class system, as well as the group mechanic. He's responsible for healing all of the players in the group. His primary gadget for doing this is the Phoenix weapon, which is unique to co-op, as well as the class of the medic. This weapon that he has, it enables him to draw energy from incoming enemies through a beam. This energy is pulled off and is stored in his weapon, which he can re-deliver to his friendlies. This re-delivered energy provides his friendlies with health.
He is on the spot healing people. He can easily get the most points in a match, no questions asked. If you're primary shooting and you're trying to deal damage to enemies, it's always good to remember that your Phoenix will chain between the enemies. So if you see a dude, you can shoot him, and if he has buddies around the corner or buddies around cover, you're going to do damage to them as well. So that's a very good thing to keep in mind when you've got a situation where you're at one end of a hallway and they're at the other end and you can't really get behind them. Just fire off that primary, you're going to damage everybody in that whole room. So then you've got the Spec Ops class, and he's my personal favorite. It's really tempting to run off on your own as a Spec Ops and shoot from afar, but that's really a recipe for disaster every time. The best place for you as a Spec Ops is right behind a soldier. You can use his shield as protection. You can deal a lot of damage very quickly. And since you're constantly giving yourself more ammo, you're constantly replenishing his shield. And you're just creating a perpetual shield destruction machine.
The Spec Ops, unlike the other classes, has a special type of grenade. It's not really a grenade, instead it replaces the grenade, and whenever he presses the ammo button with the ammo grenade selected, it drops grenade packs for the group.
A good tactic that we like to use that requires a lot of cooperation, a lot of teamwork, and a lot of talking is what we call the grenade throwing tank. Pretty much what you do is you get that soldier up front with his shield going, and you just sit behind him as a Spec Ops. You crouch behind him using all the cover you can, and you just continually throw as much ammo as you can. What you're going to be doing is you're keeping up that shield, so you're pretty much impervious to even the biggest group of enemies, and you're giving them grenades. And so every 5, 6, 7 seconds, he's getting a grenade. He's just running forward, throwing grenades, providing cover, throwing grenades, providing cover. You can get through the hairiest situation that way.
And there'll be times when you'll see everyone start to retreat from the front line and really go look for those Spec Ops, and that's when you really need to keep an eye out and try to drop those ammos out.
So a good communication tip is when you're a Spec Ops and you see a dude jumping around you, that means he needs ammo. You should always be on the ball with ammo. If you see guys running around and hiding, they probably need ammo. If you're off on your own and you're not giving out ammo, your whole team is going to die. So just make sure that when you see the dudes doing the gimme ammo dance, you hook them up. When you're playing as a soldier, a good idea is always to stay as stationary as possible. It's very tempting to try and run up, rush guys, try and flank guys, try and do different maneuvers, but really your best idea is throwing up that shield and providing a stable cover for your buddies to get behind.
The medics and the spec ops, they can't take the fire as easily as you can, but they do provide you with essential things you'll need as a soldier, like your ammo and your health. So you want to make sure that they're happy with your performance, because when you're a soldier and you got your entire team of spec ops and medics behind you, it's just the most beautiful thing in the world, because you basically are unstoppable. You don't have to worry about your health. You don't have to duck behind cover because you got your shield, and it's always full power because the spec op guy is right behind you. Each class starts off with a unique berserk that's keyed into their role into the group. The soldier starts off with the Ironheart berserk, which is a really useful berserk. That causes him to take reduced damage for as long as the berserk is active, which is really helpful if your shield drops at a bad moment or the fire is coming down really hard and you need a little bit of extra help to get you through the fight.
He levels up, unlocks a lot of cool berserks, gets other weapons, but really his primary focus is that minigun or that shield, and if he's not using that shield, you're in trouble.
Resistance 2 is unique in that experience from all three modes, single player, co-op, and competitive, contribute to your overall rank. This means if you want to move up fast and you want to unlock cool stuff quickly, you really do need to play all three modes. Check them out.